Hello, in his 6 years as a professional singer, Ian Bostridge has become one of Britain's most talked about tenors. Although he's made successful appearances on the opera stage, it's his interpretations of lieder, songs for voice and piano, that have marked Bostridge out as a performer of exceptional talent. All this from a man who until quite recently had embarked on an academic career at Oxford. For this programme, Ian Bostridge performs a selection of songs from this most intimate part of the classical repertoire. It's not a definitive history of the lieder, but his take on music, ranging from Schubert to Henze. He's joined, as he is so often these days, by the pianist Julius Drake.
Lieder is just the German word for song, but because the German tradition of writing song is such a strong one, it's been sort of adopted for what in America is called art song, but I always think that sounds a little bit funny, art song, arty song. So lieder is the term people generally use. What usually happens is a composer takes a pre-existing poem, very often by a great poet, by Goethe or by John Donne or whatever, and what they're trying to do is encapsulate what that poem is on about in music. And I think it's that collision between music and poetry that's particularly important in lieder.
What makes Ian a very special singer of songs is that he lives the song, and with an intensity which is so powerful, sometimes it's shocking. What he has is this incredible beauty and transparency of sound. And he uses it in the most intelligent way. Through that transparency, you get something that's not fat in terms of tone, but it's big in terms of meaning. He's a very meaningful singer. And that's the great gift of a song recitalist.
And what's the difference between lieder, singing a song, and singing, say, an opera? What's distinctive about lieder?
I think the lieder recital is actually a very sort of restrictive form of theatre. I mean, you've got this costume, either white tie and tails or a suit or something. You've got this very restricted platform in front of the piano, and you've got no props, just your face. It's like sort of no theatre or something, very restrictive form of theatre with very set rules, but it's still very dramatic and very theatrical. It's a monologue, it's a monodrama, and I suppose that's the most peculiar thing about it. Part of the problem with opera is the compromise that's involved. There's so many interests, it's so institutionalized. Opera houses are big organizations. I think the Paris Opera has a staff of something like 2,000 people. I mean, this is a huge operation. And then you've got the conductor and you've got the director or the producer, and there are always sort of conflicts there, which then are sort of lived out through the singers. So it's sort of.
So
I'm sort of largely with the pianist. We're in control when it's chamber music.
Can we go back to this, the idea of it coming from a poem? Is this obviously that's important? How important, and why was that? Why did this tradition start up from poetry, as it were, rather than from folk songs? Or
I think it's because Romantic poets in Germany, writing in the late 18th century and early 19th century, had this idea of poetry as lyric, and they often wrote their poems with music in mind. The big change was that they did expect actually really very simple folk-like settings. I mean, Goethe, when he was sent things, thought they were outrageous and an intrusion, and they were sort of destroying his wonderful poetry. And the irony is that a lot of Goethe's poetry, as far as the world is concerned, lives through Schubert's music.
the first leader you heard was Schubert.
Yeah, was Alkönig with Fischer Dieskau, yeah. I think it's an immediately striking song because it's so dramatic. It starts with these hammering octaves in the piano. I mean, just no, 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 and it just immediately wakes you up and you think, what's going on? And then you have a narrator telling you that you're in the forest with father and child, and then you have this interchange between father riding through the forest with child in his arms, child being scared by this ghostly figure that he can see in the forest but which the father can't see, and the father telling him to calm down, sometimes slightly, I mean, it depends how you perform it. You could feel that the father was slightly irritated by this child whinging, or you can feel that the father's actually slightly worried that something is going on. And I suppose its strength as a song is its fairy tale element. I mean, in the end, the boy dies and he's been seized away by this ghostly figure, the Old King. You feel you've been right through the mill, that you've really been through an experience that's the equivalent of a sort of 3-hour opera in 4 minutes, which is extraordinary.